Yeah. I'm sure she will.
So it's been a while since I've had a guest on the podcast who can tell us about their own menopause experience. Welcome to the Sexy Aging Podcast. Tarryn is South African, some of my favourite people, and is living in Perth, Australia, my favourite place. Tarryn has a colourful background, and I'm not talking about her hair, and I'm going to have her share about that. But today, I'm going to ask Tarryn to share her menopause story, as I know there are so many women that will see their own experience in hers. Welcome to the podcast, Tarryn.
Thank you so much for having me, and I love the name of your podcast, Sexy
Yeah,
Aging,
thank you.
because
Yeah, I get lots of people say that.
because we can be sexy in aging, and
1,000%.
even though the word sexy changes or the meaning of it changes for us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it does. It's personal to each person. Like, what does sexy mean
yeah,
to you? It's 100% what you want it to mean. We don't have to define it. We are aging, but we don't have to put a negative label on that. So I think we're on the
yeah.
same page.
Yeah, and I know this
Yeah.
is not really what you want to talk about, but I'm just to say one thing more about the sexy aging. I just find it so fascinating through the perimenopause process that sexiness, like you say, is defined differently by each person. When I was younger, it was how people perceived me, and now it's whether I'm smiling on the inside. If I'm smiling on the inside, I feel so sexy.
Yeah. Well, that is exactly the meaning that I had behind sexy aging. It's how you felt on the inside. And the aging process is going to happen, but it's how you
Yeah,
embrace it. And so, yeah,
yeah.
thank you. Thanks for that. You've
Yeah.
actually explained it better than anyone else I've had on the podcast.
It just shifts from external to internal. I think that's
Yeah, it does.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for joining me, Tarryn. You are
Yeah.
a big voice for menopause. But other
Yeah.
than being a woman in menopause, what else have you got going on? Like, where did it all start?
Yeah. So I just feel like there's so much to me. That's also such an arrogant thing to say. There's a lot to everybody. But so I was once given a gift before I moved to Australia by a friend of my mom's, a family friend who's known us a long time. And it was a chameleon cheese knife. And it was like a Carol Boys. It was really special, like do you know Carol Boys? No, she was big
I
in
have
South
no
Africa.
idea
Oh,
who that is.
okay. She was big in South Africa, big designer, like cutlery and crockery and that sort of thing. And I received this chameleon. This woman said to me, because you're such a chameleon, and I'd never thought about myself in that way. And I am, because I've worn so many different hats and I've been through so many different personalities, I feel, in my life, just trying to figure myself out. And so part of it is also being ridiculously rebellious as a kid, and always being in trouble, always getting my parents getting phone calls from the headmaster for school, and finding myself in rather precarious situations a lot. So I can't remember what your question was. Oh, what else have I got going? Oh, so anyway, that's resulted in like quite a windy path to where I am now, which is really a graphic designer and a content creator, a lover of life and people. It sounds so corny, but I feel like that now, and it's taken perimenopause to get to that moment where I'm like, I love the world.
Yeah, I think I agree. The same thing. I think I'm in the back end of perimenopause.
Yes,
I'm waiting to
me
hit
too.
that 365 days without a menstrual period.
Yeah.
I think I'm looking at month 9 at the moment, but
Wow.
I
Okay.
felt some symptoms of PMS in the last couple of weeks, and I thought, oh shit,
Yeah.
I'm going to be back to square one.
Yeah. I've had that
You
as
know?
well. Yeah, and I
Yeah,
also, because I never want to go back there. I'm glad it's happened. I've learned a lot, but I
yeah,
never want to go back there. So if I also get like a little bit of PMS, I'm like, please, no. I don't want
yeah,
to go back.
yeah. Yeah, I feel the same way. You are a content creator, and I haven't had a content creator as a guest on the podcast before. We are actually fellow content creators, and I'm
Yeah.
not, I mean, even podcasting is content. So,
Yeah.
but you actually put together so much fantastic, relatable content and share with a very large audience of women all around the world. And I think you're sharing from your personal experience. So let's dive a
Yeah.
little bit more into when did it all begin where you realized it was perimenopause? Because for a lot of us women going through perimenopause, there's a number of possible years before you even go,
Mm.
that's what it is. Is that something similar for you?
Yeah, so I think as women we're taught to keep a lot of what we feel or sense inside. Anytime we do speak up or complain or anything, it's written off as nagging or being hysterical or anything. So for a long time, I kind of kept to myself what I was really feeling. I knew something was wrong, something was different, but I didn't know how to verbalize it either. And then eventually, when it got to the point where I was like, no, I think I'm dying. I started going to the doctor.
Sorry, I don't mean to
No,
laugh.
literally,
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
First it was a lung disease, and then it was a brain tumor, and then it was cancer. And I had every test under the sun. I remember sitting in a doctor's office, and I think I've told this on one of my TikToks as well before, like saying to him, I think my lungs are, you know, collapsing or something. I need to have an X-ray because, and I imagined them full of marks and blotches and all sorts of things showing the disease that I had that was going to prove I was dying, because I would go for walks to try and force myself to exercise, and I would look at patches of grass and just think, if I could just sleep for 5 minutes, if I just lie there and sleep, I could get up and get home. And that's how bad it was. So when you feel that bad, especially if you've exercised your whole life, like you've been in the fitness industry your whole life, um, and you suddenly get to that point, like what else could it be other than a
Yeah.
terminal illness? And then it took about 4 years, I think, of that before one doctor said to me, I think you need to see our hormone specialist. I even went to a doctor one and I said to him, please, can you test my hormones? Because there's definitely something wrong, something going on. And I don't know if this is TMI, but I suppose it's the podcast we're on. The consistency of my periods had changed a lot. That to me was the most alarming thing, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I genuinely thought I was having cancer because and I'm going to explain it as gross as it is,
Yeah.
but for other
No,
women.
it's fine. That's
Yeah.
why we're here. We've spoken
Yeah.
of lots of different things like this on the
Okay,
podcast. So
cool.
everything is open and it's really helpful.
Yeah. So the consistency became very like very stringy, very old, very, very dark all the time. There was never new blood in it. So it was always black, almost black. And it was just and a bit cloggy. And
Cloggy, yeah.
that can be really alarming, especially because I've given birth. I had natural births. And after the second child, I didn't realize at the time, but the doctor had left the part of the placenta and it had gone septic, and they hadn't picked it up, and bits my period became like that, so that I was
Yeah.
flashing back to those moments like something's very wrong, and the doctor hadn't picked it up then, and then so eventually, but that doctor, when I explained it, he said no, that's normal. And I think at the time I must have been about 39ish, and it wasn't normal. It's not
No.
normal. It's not a normal everyday. And then I feel like doctors don't listen. You are the expert on your body. You know your body. At that stage, I'd had my body 39 years. I knew it wasn't normal. So what is normal for the typical woman is not always normal for you. And then eventually one GP, I can't even remember who it was, I wish, but I've been through so many, said to me, you need to see this GP. She's a specialist in a woman's hormones. And I saw her, and she was the one that was like, oh my gosh, you're definitely in perimenopause. She diagnosed it on the symptoms, but she also did the blood tests as well. And the blood tests confirmed as much as they could confirm. Because as we
Yeah.
know,
Is it because you
they're
were
always
under
different.
45?
What do you mean? What
So you were
specifically?
under 45 years of age when you had the blood test and you were confirmed as in menopause?
I'm not sure what the question. I was under 45, but I'm not sure what the question
Yeah.
is.
Okay, so what we know is that it's diagnosed as early perimenopause if you're under the age of 45, and they will do a blood test. But when a woman goes to their GP now and they're 45 and above, it's based on symptoms alone. So you don't need to have a blood test.
Wow.
That's why I really encourage women who are going through perimenopause and they're over the age of 45 to just list down all the symptoms that they think are menopause, because if they have a list of symptoms, that's how it's diagnosed, if you want to call it
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And blood tests are not always accurate during perimenopause, so it's hard.
Yeah.
But then the long way around. So I still struggled with perimenopause, seeing that particular GP. I found 15 minutes is not enough time for a woman, especially being diagnosed with perimenopause at that early perimenopause, because you need to understand a lot. And 15 minutes with a GP just to give you some medication is not enough, especially when you think you're dying. You're like, are you?
Yeah.
I'm so sure I've got brain cancer. So I tried a whole lot of different medications. She tried mixing things up for me, and I just never agreed with the pharmaceutical hormone. So actually, I gave it up, and I thought I'm actually just not going to do this medication thing. I'm going to do this on my own because I just feel terrible. And then I got even worse. So I thought, oh no, I have
Yeah.
to find a way. So I found the Raath Center, but this was around. I mean, I must have been about 44 by the time I found the Raath Center. So this is from 38 to 44, or maybe
Yeah.
43. Anyway, the Raath Center, they they do bioidentical hormones, and
Hmm.
I went to a nurse at first, and I still wasn't feeling comfortable, and then I asked to see a doctor, and the doctor went through my results and everything very scientifically, which was really really helpful, and she decided what doses I should try, and I tried that, and it worked. I've had problems with my estrogen affecting my heart, um,
Right.
so I've had to dip the estrogen and then pick it up slowly again. But yeah, I eventually found that the bioidentical hormones help. And I think with every woman, I think what women need to understand is, even if we do a lot of research now, it's still such an individual journey for each person. You're probably still going to have to try different dosages of everything. You're going to have to try different medications, or if you prefer the natural route, it's still going to be a trial and error before you get to, something that works for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I've mentioned this before that it feels like out of the 34 symptoms in the International Menopause Society list, it's like we get it's like a lotto ticket, right? And you're one person who buys the lotto ticket and you get to choose 10 numbers or 10 symptoms, and that's your experience. And then
Yeah.
2 or 3 years later, it changes.
Yes.
So
And then you've got to
it,
adjust.
and you've got to make those adjustments. And I think over
Yeah.
time, it's like that foundation of, healthy lifestyle hacks. And you've got to keep
Yeah.
tweaking those as well. It's not just all the medications, like you say. I think we're both on hormones, but,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just keep tweaking little things. I get a little bit more disciplined with sleep. I have really cut back on alcohol. I'm close to not drinking anymore, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just because the symptoms they wreck my day. So if
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can do what
Yeah.
I can do in the background, life just gets a lot better for everyone in the house.
Yeah. But I
Yeah.
think something I don't hear people talk about very often is getting therapy as well. You're changing so much as a person, and to not be the person you've always known yourself as can be really
Yeah.
scary. And I think also and I know that therapy is so expensive. So if there's some way, like I think if the government is going to start putting money, or Medicare or whatever, going to start putting money towards things, I think, therapy as well as whatever medications or natural remedies will be hugely helpful for women to get through this period. Because I think once you have the therapy and your mind is right, it's so much easier to exercise or to go to sleep. And I know, I mean, your body is, when you're that tired, no amount of
Yeah.
therapy, you can't even go to therapy.
Yeah.
um, but I think to help you manage the psychological shift as well will make it a little bit easier to make those little tweaks in your day,
Yeah.
that make you feel better.
You make some really awesome content that relates to the psychological, cognitive symptoms of menopause. So, in your own experience, have you got some examples of how they affected you on the daily?
Hmm. So I sort of break that into two. I think there's the emotional, and then there's the cognitive.
Mm.
So I'll do the cognitive first. I definitely found my memory was so much worse. I have ADHD. That got even worse. I started forgetting to pitch. I still forget to pitch up to meetings. I have to put like 3 alarms on my phone. I almost forgot this one. And this is something I was excited about. So I woke up at 5 o'clock this morning to go for a walk with a friend at 6. She messaged me at 6:07 and said, "I'm going to assume you've forgotten." Like, no, I didn't. I'm standing here waiting to go. I thought it was 5 o'clock. I'd set my
Yeah.
alarm for 6. So those are still symptoms I have regularly, and that does concern me a bit. I have been told that ginkgo is good for
Mm.
the brain. It's a good supplement for the brain. But I think also just that creates anxiety about am I going to be seen as incompetent, or will I lose my job, or am I losing opportunities because my brain's not functioning like it used to function? But I also
Yeah.
find at the same time, when I do creative tasks, I am more creative, and I'm more lost in that now because I don't have, my brain, doing all this thing that it used to do, because it can't now handle all that information at the same time. So, my role is creative. So I suppose there's been a positive to it as well.
Yeah. I love how you've described that. I mean, I think so many women resonate with that concept of feeling like you can't do your job, feeling like you're incompetent. And a lot of women are going through this today in
Mm.
the work environment. And it's so good to see businesses sort of reaching out to menopause experts to come in and share what we all need to know. It's not just a woman's thing, but everyone that's working in a work environment, they'll be working with some woman who's going through menopause, and she's sitting at her desk, sweating up a ton, and wondering whether she should still be there or whether she should just leave. So, the fact that
Yeah.
we can openly discuss this now and not have that fear of they're going to get rid of me. And
Yeah.
then the other
Yeah.
part about the creative, I love that. I think it's awesome that you embrace how creative you are at this stage of life. And that's kind of one of the upsides of menopause.
Yeah.
It's like understanding that I have changed, I have grown, and I'm going to embrace this superpower that I have, the freedom of not really caring what other people think. That's
Yeah.
really part of the creative process as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And I've spoken to so many women who have discovered their creativity through perimenopause, because they suddenly,
Yeah.
one, they decide to give time to themselves, and two, they want to get lost in something that fills them and feels beautiful, or feels like it's so different from the daily grind.
Yeah. No, I love that so much. I want to ask you about your family experience with you going through menopause. I didn't put this on the
Yeah.
questions, but I'm starting to
Yeah,
think
yeah.
I feel like I know you a little bit. Like I watch your videos. You are
Yeah.
so funny. I'm going to
Oh,
put
thank you.
your link in the show notes, because I feel like every woman that's going through menopause, if you want to feel seen and you want to have a few laughs, because you got to laugh, then you got
Yeah.
to check out Tarryn's videos. But I
Thank
can
you.
see sometimes you play on the experience that you have with your family members. How are they feeling
Yes.
about all of this?
My family, they're actually pretty good, because I do have to give a little bit of background. So when I was younger, I grew up in conservative apartheid South Africa, and women very much had a place and a role. And it definitely was not in a boardroom or in a higher institution, a higher academic institution, unless you were studying something like nursing or something like that. And I knew from young, without anybody telling me, that that was wrong. And I spent my life fighting that. And I was often in trouble. I was ridiculed by friends' boyfriends. Friends' boyfriends didn't like me being around, because I would say, "This is not right. I'm not having that." And I still have that problem today, actually, with friends' partners who are sort of dominant men and believe that men are more important and have a role. Don't like me being friends with their wife, because I have this impact or this effect on them, that we deserve the equality, and you must expect that. Don't It's not even a privilege, it's an expectation. So because I am like that, I've married someone who's very accepting of equality, and understands it. And then my children are very clear on me having those feelings, and that's how the world should be. So, but at the same time, I've still fallen into the role of a woman, like we do, because that's what we
Yeah,
see growing up. And this is a really long-winded answer, but yeah, just to give you the context. But I still fell into that role, and I found myself really frustrated and angry. So my family are used to me having a voice and speaking up. My husband will kick me under the table if we're at a dinner party and somebody asks a question that he knows is going to rile me up. So they're used to me being like this. So on one hand, they find it funny. On the other hand, I suppose it's quite scary when there's rage moments.
mm,
And then, well, not that I've had those in a while now. But on the other hand, Tracy, it's had an impact. my whole life, like complaining about things never worked. No matter what I did, I couldn't get people to help or adjust or see this as their role as well, not just me as a manager doing everything and they do the odd task. But making these videos have made them either so much more aware or scared to be the target of another video, but they've actually started doing a lot more in the house and helping. So
Amazing.
I recommend everybody start a TikTok channel and start
Yeah.
gunning for their family if they want to
Yeah.
change things.
I think one of the interesting parts I wanted to open this up to the listeners to be open-minded to the fact that TikTok is actually a search engine where you can find out a lot of information around women's health. Some of my favorite doctors are on TikTok. I have learned so much from doctors in this space. And obviously I found you as well. And I really, really loved your creative take on it. You are the voice in my head that comes out.
Oh, that's cool. So you hold it in and then I
I hold
express
it in, but you just
Yeah.
put it out there and I'm like, shit, that's so funny. And so I really encourage women, if you want to find some really good content on menopause, it is growing. This conversation is definitely growing in TikTok. You and I are both there. We're having a blast, but also we met through TikTok,
Yes. Yes. So
Yeah,
many opportunities. You connect with so many amazing people. And
yeah.
from all parts of the world and all sorts of industries. It's actually an incredible community.
Yeah. Do you think it's because we're creatives that we naturally would go on a platform like TikTok, and because we're both in menopause, that's the thing we're going to talk about, and that we kind of end up meeting each other? That's what I think is.
Well, I think
Yeah.
that's part of it. I think that's what it is for us, for you and
Yeah.
I. But I think for some people, they feel really strongly about something and they really want to, like, they feel strongly enough that they want a platform to do something about it. But yeah, so I think again, it's different for most people. But I would say surely at least half the people on here are creatives.
Yeah, for sure. When you're out and about in public in Perth, do you
Yeah,
ever have anyone come up to you, say in a cafe or the
I
supermarket, or
do. I
how does
do.
that make you feel? Because obviously you're a voice for women in
Yeah,
menopause. I mean, I've just mentioned you're the voice in my head.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
It's so funny.
yeah. So
Um,
yeah, what kind of things do you hear women say, and what are they asking you to
oh,
do?
no, most of the time people just say, "Are you?" They'll usually stare at me for a little while, and then they'll come over and say, "Hey, are you the person from Bright Life from TikTok?" So, and then I'll say yes. And then usually it's a very short conversation. People don't usually stay for. They usually just say, "I just love your TikTok. Thank you so much for your content," or I send my mom all your posts. Or I had someone recognize me in Prague. That was quite funny. But no, she didn't actually come. She didn't come and speak to me. She just sent me a message and said, "Hey, I think I've just seen you in Prague." And I said, "Yes, you did. I'm here."
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah, I suppose because you got followers all over the world, like I guess you could be recognized anywhere. I love it, and I love that people feel comfortable enough to come to me. I love that my content makes people feel comfortable enough to come and approach me. I love being approachable and I love being relatable. I know I'm not relatable to everybody because I'm not all coiffured and beautifully put together like a lot of people, but those aren't my people anyway.
yeah.
So yeah, so it feels good. It makes me feel like my content reflects more who I am if people feel comfortable to come and say hi.
Yeah. Well, I am thoroughly enjoying what you're putting out into the world. So, what have you got? What hopes have you got for the menopause space in the future? Because we're obviously doing this, to help
Mm,
people. So, what do you hope for? Because I know in my head I've got, certain things, goals, and
yeah.
aspirations for the conversation.
Yeah, I've also got huge goals, but I work full time and I love my job, so it's a bit tricky to know to work that out. And that's what I meant earlier when I've got too many interests at the moment, and I'm trying to do them all. Ideally, what I would do is I would love a podcast as well. Well, I actually have started speaking to a few people, but I've only put one out so far, and I'm interested in the stories where they might not be your usual journey, to help just get more and more information out there for everybody experiencing perimenopause. For example, people who have had cancer, people who have had early hysterectomies, people who have gone through perimenopause. I met a woman who went through it at 25.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm interested in that. I want to provide information, but I want to get information from the people. So, for example, I've collected doctors' names when people have responded to my comments and said, uh, this doctor's helped me so much. So I've got a page, which I haven't put on my website yet, on perimenopause. So those are the kind of things I want to collect, where normal everyday people can go to. And it might not necessarily be information from a doctor. There's lots of information like that online. It's more like the real life stories and the anecdotal stories or information that'll be able to help them. So there's that. I would love to connect with them. And I'm meeting someone tomorrow, actually, connect with a woman who's opening a menopause center with a GP. I want to connect with people like that. Maybe even do content with them to help draw traffic there for them. Not for the financial gain, but just to give people, a woman, a place to go where they can get therapy. They can access people like you, like people who've been in the industry, the fitness industry for so long. You've gone through that change. I think it's so incredible for women to be able to look at you and go, oh wow, how are you still doing it? And to hear your story and to hear what you've gone through to get to where you are, to also understand it's not, you're not lucky. You've made your life. You've worked through what you needed to work through to get to this point and to stay where you are. And I'm sure there's going to be more you have to work through. Like I saw your TikTok the other day, about the 2 weeks where you didn't do anything and you realized something was wrong. So I think, if I can help people, even if it's funneling them to a really, really good resource, that's really what I'd like to do. But it's such a big task.
Yeah. I think I had that feeling that you have too, that it's big, because you know that you are capable and that you can actually do a lot. And what I told myself is just start with the one thing.
Yeah.
And you're definitely doing this from a place of just wanting to help. And when it does come from that place and you just start with the one thing, things start rolling from there.
Yeah.
Otherwise you get stuck in the analysis paralysis of
Yes. Yeah.
I should do it like this, or it needs to be perfect, right? I think that's
Yeah.
probably one of the biggest learnings that I've had through this menopause life stage, is just start the thing and it doesn't need to be perfect. And people tell you, and they're telling you how much you're
Yeah.
helping them. And I think that's just a reminder, hey, just do the thing, get on it, go for it. So I'll
Yeah.
really look forward to seeing, what comes out of your
Yeah.
podcast, the other things you want to do. So yeah, do the
Yeah.
podcast. You hope for the future for women that are coming through or will come into menopause? What do you hope to see? Like, what is the ideal scenario for them?
Yeah. Well, I think millennials going through perimenopause or coming into menopause are going to have a louder voice than we did. They're going to demand more, which I think will be awesome. And for them, I would like more of our women, our generation, to start speaking more about it, so that there is more support for them when they come into, and actually beyond them. Um, my ideal would be that perimenopause is so well known, every woman knows it, knows the word, knows the symptoms, what to look out for, knows where to go to get help. All families know about perimenopause. I would like, this goes beyond perimenopause. I would like to see the domains of responsibility within households shared more equally amongst partners, so that when women do go through perimenopause and they're still working full time, they can withdraw at least a bit to look after themselves without feeling guilty, without the family feeling like what's wrong with them, rather than feeling like, let's give mom some space. There's a lot of conflicting information still, and a lot of fear mongering. I'd like that to be cleared up. So if there was more, if the research was clearer on what women should and shouldn't do. But I'd also like, and I don't know how this is, I'd like a more individualized approach to perimenopause in each woman. I think, for example, estrogen can cause if you take estrogen, it raises your increase of getting a stroke by a certain amount. I know it also decreases your chances of heart disease and other things, but maybe, maybe we need to look at, for example, are you at risk of that? Do you have small vessels disease, or do you have this gene that makes you susceptible to stroke, like a clotting gene or something? So I think if we have those kind of approaches to treatment, and women can feel safe and secure with the medication that they're going to take or the route that they've chosen, I think that'll provide a lot more comfort as well.
Yeah. And I think just the lack of judgment around a woman's choice of how she wants to live her menopause life.
Yeah.
I think that's just one thing that I would tag on. I agree with all the things that you've said. And I think because this conversation is so new in the women's health space, that we're
Yes.
really struggling with what's true and what's not true, what's
Yeah.
fact and
Yeah.
what's fiction. And of
Yeah.
course, in the social media space, it can get a little bit like that. It can get a little confusing.
Yeah.
But yeah, just that everyone doesn't, people don't judge each other for
Yeah.
example, whether you want to take HRT or not, whether you want to
Yeah.
take certain supplements or not. It's like we are all trying to do the best that we can.
Yes, by our
And
body
we,
and by what we know and what we
correct.
respond to. But something else you
Mhm.
said, Tracy, that also triggered a thought for me was the no judgment, and that is no judgment across the board about women in perimenopause. Instead of menopause being looking at a time where a woman goes crazy and just gets old like a witch, and
Yeah,
the perimenopause stage and the menopause is like, it is like a butterfly sort of a moment where you come out of this horrible phase, but you're actually a better, more loving person a lot of the time. Not for everybody, obviously, but also that those changes we go through make us better grandparents. So there's something
yeah,
in it that's instinctive, and it's part of our biology, and it's a necessity. And to become a wise, nurturing, wonderful woman is just the most awesome thing for any society. So to
yeah,
demonize it the way it has been is a shame. So I'd like
yeah.
that to change.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I think I'm getting closer to that point where I just have a huge amount of respect and love for women that are maybe 10 years older than me. Like I
Yeah.
aspire to be in that headspace where they're just the empathy level, the compassion level, the non-judgmental
Yeah.
attitude. Like I can see it now for what it is, and I go, oh, well, that's because they've gone through this journey. And like you said,
Yeah.
like a butterfly, we're in that chrysalis for freaking 10 years.
I know, it's a shit show. It's horrible.
Yeah. And then you just like
Yeah.
peek out, oh no, coming back. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like you were
Yeah.
saying, like that PTSD, not that, but that PMS symptoms.
Yeah.
My cocoon is closed. It's disintegrated and gone. I'm never going
Yeah.
back there again.
Yeah. Fantastic. Hey, Tarryn, thank you so much for sharing, coming on the podcast. I love your story. I love what you're doing to
Oh,
support
thank
women in the
you.
menopause life stage. And I really, really look forward to seeing what's coming next from you. And it's just great to work alongside other women having this
Yeah.
conversation and finding the cool things and cool ways that they can elevate the conversation around menopause.
Thank you so much, Tracy. This has been so awesome.
Yeah.
It's so nice to see you, and it's because I've only seen you on video calls, video
Video,
notes,
WhatsApp
yeah,
messages.
and
Yeah.
TikToks.
Yeah.
Yes,
And TikTok.
yeah,
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tarryn. I'm going to put your link to your TikTok in the show notes. Really encourage women to check you out for great content, to be just to know that you have a voice of someone who's out there speaking about menopause. Thank you so much.